You miss their warmth and their smell and their lovely, lovely presence.
The last time I saw my daughter alive, she was curled up in my husband's arms, and they were watching Animal Planet on TV and laughing.
And so you're in shock, really. You just trying to take everything in, really, of what's happened, because it's. Then you think, well, we can get over this.
Caitlin died at home, and we found her. She'd probably been dead for maybe at the most 5 minutes when we found her. And she'd hanged herself in the guest bedroom upstairs. There was one thing in her system, in the coroner's report, a therapeutic dose of fluoxetine hydrochloride.
But love is such an awful thing to lose.
What happened to these families were not rare events. Not at all. Fluoxetine, or Prozac, has a controversial, troubled history, but you wouldn't know it by listening to the so-called medical experts. As far back as the 1980s, Eli Lilly, the FDA, and others successfully conspired to keep vital information about deaths, violence, suicides, and serious adverse reactions to Prozac away from the general public. Just for the record, this is not a statement of opinion. It is fact.
Through the internal documents that we're able to show that Eli Lilly knew about there being an activation potentially leading to suicidality issue in the earliest clinical trials as early as the mid-1980s.
According to the top-secret files obtained for this documentary, it was German regulators who first expressed concerns about Prozac and suicidality risks in 1984. An internal Eli Lilly memorandum, dated May the 25th, 1984, acknowledged that during the treatment with fluoxetine, 16 suicide attempts were made, 2 of these with success. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. June the 26th, 1984, a Lilly executive acknowledged that the BGA, or the German equivalent of the FDA, suspected that Prozac was responsible for triggering suicides and suicide attempts. The German regulators added, "This is a very serious issue in the opinion of the BGA."
The Germans had been worried about suicide and violence, particularly suicide, on Prozac. So they asked Eli Lilly to review its clinical studies. Studies created by the company, everything set up to make the drug look good and not set up to find adverse effects. And what have they found? In their in-house study, they found between a 6 to 12 times increase in rate of suicide attempts on Prozac compared to placebo. So what'd they do? They never reported it.
It was a matter of how do we cover it up, how do we hide it. At every step of the process towards approval and marketing thereafter was designed to hide and mislead the public and physicians about the suicide side effect.
The hiding of information, the deliberate lying about information is the big ethical issue. If the public wants to take Prozac, they should have the opportunity to do so, but they should do so in an informed way.
During the trials for fluoxetine and throughout the first few years the drug was on the market, there were 28,000 adverse events reported and 1,600 suicides, both record numbers for a new drug. These facts were pointed out to the FDA's second-in-command in 1993.
What about your concern regarding something like Prozac, that very well documented 28,000 adverse reports, 1,600 suicides associated with that drug?
Well, you know, drugs that go through our very rigorous testing and review process are very well understood chemicals, and drugs are recognized to have both risks and benefits. That's why they go through a rigorous evaluation, and when those products are put out on the market, we have a good scientific understanding of both the risks and benefits.
A good scientific understanding? If that is so, why didn't the FDA catch the suicide risk so apparent in the scientific studies? The fact is, the FDA knew. Clandestine memos like this one from Lilly's Lee Thompson prove it. Lilly's own secret files implicate the FDA's Paul Lieber, Robert Temple, and Thomas Loughran as being duplicitous in a scheme to whitewash the dark facts about Prozac. A Lilly executive writes, "This report must move swiftly through approval and to Dr. Lieber's hands. He is our defender." And the FDA's Thomas Loughran is quoted by a Lilly exec as saying, "The firm has a friend in Bob Temple." The array of secret memos reveal an aggressive public relations strategy aimed at quelling the fervor over Prozac, and mental health professionals were vital to the plan's success.
We agree with the FDA finding that there is insufficient evidence that fluoxetine or any other antidepressant induces suicidal or other violent behavior. We feel that labeling must be based on sound science and not sensationalism.
I'm terribly concerned that any labeling change of antidepressant medication without scientific data to justify such a change will adversely affect patients and physicians needlessly. Who would want to prescribe and who would want to take a drug the federal government says may be associated with suicidal thoughts or behavior?
The information on the leaflet was, this is not an addictive medication. There are no withdrawal symptoms. It will not damage you in any way. This is a safe drug. That just wasn't the case. It certainly wasn't the case with Caitlin.
Was there something about these kinds of cases that caught your attention, that attracted you?
Absolutely. I've actually been working on these even before I went to law school. As a paralegal, I was working for this firm, Baum Hedlund, and they had taken on basically some pro bono cases related to the Prozac suicide issue. Our first client actually was the wife of Del Shannon, and we had a mutual friend of that family that brought the case to us, and that's what initiated us